Alright, so I've been trying to decide on what the best filmmaking option would be between the Canon EOS R5, the Canon EOS R6, and the Sony A7S III. But to be honest, I think this conversation is just incomplete if we do not consider the Panasonic Lumix S1H. Now I know it's a lot to process, but let's roll the intro. Hi, my name is Edward, and my channel is all about content creation, filmmaking, tips, tutorials, and reviews. So if you're interested in anything creative, I would definitely consider subscribing. Okay, now, what an exciting couple of weeks it has just been, and I'm sure I speak on behalf of a lot of filmmakers. From the announcement of Canon's EOS R5, the Canon EOS R6, Sony's A7S III. Personally, as a product marketing specialist and as a creator, I am super excited just to see these amazing brands innovate products that would just impact and change the landscape of filmmaking going forward. But another thing that this has made me do is really take a look and pay attention to the Lumix S1H, which I admittedly did not do in the past. Now, since I've not really had any hands-on experience with any of these devices, I have solely relied on my extensive research. Now, I'm fully aware that what is written on a data spec sheet is not exactly a full representation of its performance and capabilities that you will get out of the product. But I'm going to go ahead and just put up a comparison for you to look at some of the specs which I believe are important to consider, and I'll talk about some of the benefits right after that. Let's get to the specs.
Alright, let's talk sensors. All four of these cameras have a full-frame sensor. The Canon R5 has an impressive 45 megapixels, which is 25 megapixels higher than the R6 and 15 megapixels higher than the EOS R. In this case, it's clear to see that the S1H and the A7S III take the second and last place respectively. ISO sensitivity is where Sony shines, proven to be a low-light king, extending up to 409,600. I'd be happy with the ISO performance of the R6 and the S1H, although the R5 in this case has kind of disappointed. As far as recording modes go, the R5 stands on its own, offering 8K resolution up to 30 frames per second. The A7S III, however, edges out the R6 in 4K resolution, offering up to 120 frames per second. The S1H offers up to 6K resolution in a cinematic 24 frames per second. Now, it is important to note that Panasonic claims to have 14 plus stops of dynamic range in Vlog, and according to BH Photo Video, the Sony A7S III carries 15 plus stops of dynamic range. Now, as far as the R5 and R6 goes, dynamic range has not been officially disclosed. However, it is rumored that the R5 has significantly less dynamic range than the 5D Mark IV. Should this hold any truth, then Canon falls short in this category. Now, something worth considering is the Mbps in optimal resolution. The Canon R5 in 8K 30 should give you between 680 to 1300 Mbps. The R6 in 4K 60, 120 to 230 Mbps. The A7S III in 4K 120, between 100 to 280 Mbps. And lastly, the S1H with 6K 24 with 200 Mbps. This makes a huge difference depending on what type of user you are, your workflow, and your setup. Alright, so the common ground for all four of these cameras: minimum 10-bit 422, 4K RAW or log, IBIS, full-frame sensors, and so much more. Some of the key differences: the maximum resolution, the memory cards between the CF Express and the SD card, the price of the lenses. For example, the 24-70 f2.8 lens will cost you about $100 more on the Canon and Lumix lens than it would on the Sony lens. So what it comes down to is that the Lumix S1H will cost you about $100 more than the Canon R5. If you're short about $400, then you should look at the A7S III. $1,000 less than that, then you have the R6. And that's why the decision on what the best camera option would be between these four would need to be decided based on your filming needs, your workflow, your current gear ecosystem, and your budget.
So, Is there such a thing as a perfect camera? What I do believe, obviously, is that every camera system is designed with a consumer in mind and a purpose, and every part of their innovative strength is driven towards making sure they achieve that. Now, if we look at the Canon EOS R5, I mean, it's a goodie bag full of everything filmmakers need, such as 8K RAW, 4K 120, 10-bit 422. It literally has everything that is tailored to meet almost everyone's needs. And with that, there will be some snags. Now, Sony took on a different focus. It was always known that Sony gave us everything and missed out on some of the pain points that really mattered to creators. In fact, it almost feels like Sony and Canon switched seats for a little while. In a recent article from Alpha Universe, Sony's deputy president for imaging products and solutions was quoted that the Sony A7S3 is the ultimate representation of Sony's passion to solve their customers' pain points. Now, Sony has always spoken to creators and vloggers and filmmakers, but there were some little knacks that they missed out along the way, and they're tending to that through their consumer-centric approach. So if we look at this, they've included things such as an easier menu system that separates video from photo, flip-out screen, which I would love to use at the moment. In addition to that, 10-bit 422, 4K in slow-mo, and so much more. So they've kept it simple, back to the basics. But all this just made me look at the unsung hero currently, who was actually first at this race, and that's in the Panasonic Lumix S1H. Fine, it's not a perfect camera. It has its drawbacks, such as slower autofocus response, poor IBIS performance, and also has a very limited range in native lenses. But not all cameras can be perfect. Canon isn't perfect for sure with their limited and expensive RF lens options. Isn't perfect with their alleged overheating, as well as their mammoth file sizes in 8K RAW. And what about Sony and their maximum 4K resolution, while everyone else is stepping it up to 6K and 8K? The point here is, maybe this is the best time to look at the Lumix S1H. Panasonic also states on their website that this product has the first of its kind internal fan that incorporates in a full frame DSLM camera, which essentially means no overheating. And also, let's not forget that the Panasonic Lumix S1H was the first Netflix approved mirrorless camera. I gotta tell you, for my kind of workflow, I think I can work with some of the drawbacks, such as manual focus. I'm sure I can work around stabilization. It's not a bad idea to look at this too. All right, thank you so much for making it in the video this far. If you found this intriguing or in any way interesting, please make sure to hit the thumbs up, share, and subscribe. Until next time, don't wait, just create.